Hello, dear friends. This is Grandma Jeannie. Welcome back to my workshop. I've got to get a house ready to go. This is one I got not too long ago on one of my road trips. You may have seen the video. This is the Marx Colonial with the Disney Nursery. It's got Donald Duck on the floor and Mickey Mouse on all the walls. It's super cute. It just needs cleaned up and just a little tiny bit of paint. And I think it's going to be good to go. Maybe a little tiny straightening. This house isn't super dirty, but it would benefit from a nice cleaning. I like to use paper towels and a non-sudsy cleaner. And the cleaner I'm using tonight is actually Awesome Cleaner from the Dollar Tree. Works very well. Something like 409 would work also. So I'm going to fold my paper towel into fours. I spray right on my paper towel. I don't like to get too much liquid in my dollhouse. Here's the deal. Don't use too much liquid. Don't spray directly into your dollhouse. You want to avoid rust. Remember, these are metal. Don't scrub too hard. You can rub the graphics right off. The other thing is, if it's a house you've not worked with before, or a brand, or a cleaner, you'll want to do a test spot underneath the roof or underneath the base to make sure you're not going to damage. Look, it is dusty. Let's give it a nice clean. Every single surface will get washed off. I've cleaned the whole house except for one thing. I always remove the chimney. There's two reasons. First of all, if I sell this and ship it, it ships a lot smaller with that chimney off. So I would probably take it off for shipping anyway. The other thing is it's almost always really, really dirty under where that chimney was. And you can see how much dirt and dust is in there. So we'll get that cleaned up nice and clean too. And that way, if it gets shipped with its chimney off, it will look nice when the new owner gets it. This house is in pretty good condition. Now, as I clean it, I keep an eye open for what areas need a little paint and what areas need a little straightening. And here's the straightening areas. Right along here, this floor has got a little warp right there. Here along the roof, there's just a little bit of a warp. And on the sides, there's just a little bit of a bend there. You may not be able to see it, but across here, there's just a little bit of a bend. There's also a spot here where there's a little bit of a bend that could be pushed back that way just a little bit, this corner. So I'm going to do that off of camera, but I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it because I've done this on camera many times. But in case you're curious or you've not seen those videos, let me tell you the process. Then you can go back and find those videos. So we'd like this floor to be nice and straight. I've got a piece of hardwood flooring here left from when I did my living room floor. Now, if you don't have something like that, you could use a 2x4 or anything else that's kind of, hard and nice and straight, wooden. I'm going to put it under here, and I think maybe you can see here this gap that I'm talking about. I mean, my finger can almost go in there. That needs to be pounded down. So I'm going to put this up here, hold it nice and tight, use my rubber hammer, and hammer that down. It's kind of loud to do that. I might put a piece of fabric or cloth in there to keep from damaging that metal. This is a rubber hammer. It looks like metal, but it's actually hard rubber. So I'll do it there. I will do the same technique up here along the roof to get that straight too. And again, if I can get that up there, I think you can see that that should be nice and straight along there. But in fact, there's a dip down here, so that's going to have to be pounded up. I will probably put it like this. There, you can see that gap a little better. And then I'll probably pound up that way. I may have to turn the house upside down to do that. And for the side, I may have to lay it down here on its side like this and do the same technique. Put the wood underneath there and hammer that flat and see if we can get that dent out. Let me get that done, and then we'll take a quick look at it. Okay, this is so far off, I just can't resist showing you how satisfying this is. Now, I've got this house upside down in this bent roof along my hardwood, and here's my hammer. You're going to hear me hammer just a little bit. That looks a lot better. That floor is nearly straight, and so is that roof, and the walls are as straight as they're going to be. And as I went through, I made an effort to get those little tabs back in the slots. Okay, we're going to do just a little bit of paint touch-up. We'll start with the white or off-white. I call it Dollhouse white, which will be white mixed in with a little bit of brown. And we'll just go through and touch up a few of these areas. Like right here, that's a really light rust. It looks like dirt, but we'll touch all those little areas up so it looks nice and clean. To prepare to paint, I've got a few of these areas that are a little bit, they're rough to the touch. When I say a little bit rough to the touch, I mean that they have got corrosion on them that makes that corrosion up thicker than the rest of the house. So I'm going to do just a tiny bit of sanding on that, and I want to tell you how I do that. There's a spot on the other side I want to do too, but that way you'll know the process if you ever want to do it. I use a pretty fine grit sandpaper on this red paper. This is grit 150, so 150 or higher would be a finer paper. If I use that brown sandpaper, I usually use like 180 or 200 or 220 grit. Again, the higher the number, the finer the grit. And then I just tear off a little tiny piece, a little corner, enough to cover my finger. And then I use that like a little sanding pad. And just right there at the tip of my finger, I'm going to do little tiny sanding. Wherever you sand, you'll not only remove that corrosion, but you can remove a little bit of the paint surrounding it. So I just kind of lightly do little bitty circles and get that knocked down so that it's not so raised. When I paint it, it will be much more level. After that, I'll take a damp paper towel and wipe off the little dust that is resulting, the rust dust, so to speak. Just took a little bit of sanding to get that part there done. I just want to knock that down smooth. And there you can see the rust dust has come up. That part's good. There's a little spot in here. I'm going to do the same thing, and I want to turn it around and show you on the other side what I want to do. Again, it's the same process, but I want to show you because that spot is a little deeper, a little more corroded. So just gently knock off the very top of that corrosion, that rust, so you're not removing very much of the paint. Okay, let's turn it around and I'll show you the other side. These little spots are kind of odd. I'm not sure what caused these little rust spots. But right here at the base of this window must have been a little water dripped or condensed there. There's quite a rough spot there, there, and there. So all three of those are going to get that little tiny little bit of sanding done and then wiped off. Just want to sand them down smooth so they're smoother than they are. And then we're going to do the paint. So when I use white on these houses, it's not really a bright white. I call it dollhouse white. So I've got a little off-white over here and a little bit of white that I'm going to mix together to make just barely an off-white. And I'm going to use that to touch up any of these areas on here that would benefit from a little bit of white paint or dollhouse white paint. Remember, I think I showed you a couple of these little areas that had just a little bit of rust. A really good idea, it's not really rust, it's almost a tarnish, is to dab that off-white on there, that dollhouse white, and then, as you notice, a lot of times I kind of just tap that with my finger, and that helps to blend that in. That freshly spotted paint blends in, and there's another one over here. It looks just a little bit grubby is what it looks like. I'm not sure. This house has got some interesting kind of tarnished patterns on it. I don't know if that's probably from just where it was stored. I'm not really sure. I don't know the history of this house. As you recall, a friend of mine spotted this at an antique mall and asked me if I wanted it, and I said yes. And she picked it up and held on to it for a week or two till we could get together, and I picked it up from her, and I very much appreciate her help. And it's just going to take just a little bit of work and effort to get this house back into as best as condition as it can be and get it back into the hands of a collector, especially with that Disney nursery. This is a desirable house. So let's see if we can extend its life by another 40, 50 years and get it into the hands of somebody that will appreciate it. Now, you might not believe this. You're just going to have to take my word for it that this is true. But this area down here with this paint, I did a little sanding because there were some dark spots. A lot of times if I just tap a little of that Dollhouse white on there, I'm going to darken it up just a little bit and then just tap that on there and wipe it off. And a lot of times that is sufficient to blend those back in and make them not noticeable like they were or ugly like they were. So let's just go ahead along there, tap that on there and brush it off. And I wish you could see, I don't know if the camera's picking up, what a positive difference that is making. Just tap it on and then tap it off. And that is all those little spots are going to need to clean that up and make that look like it's not worn out or dirty or trashy or anything like that. So the living room is like close to done. There's even a spot out here in the middle of the floor. There aren't very many of those little dark spots in the middle, but there is one there, and we're going to do that same thing there. Tap it on, brush it off, and then say, oh, that looks so much better. It just blends it in and looks really good. Got just a couple more to do here on the very far edge, and we're going to call the living room done. As I said, this house needed very little in the way of paint. It needed very little in the way of straightening and just a little cleaning. But all those things together made the house look run down, ready for, ready to be retired or trashed. But just a little bit of time fixing that up, and we're going to be bringing it back. There. That living room looks really, really good. Now there's a little bit of, there's a few scratches here in the kitchen. I might have to put paint on that. Here on the front is just that green is kind of thin and worn. So I will probably run some paint along there, or else I've got a marker that color. I might try that. But let's just try this kind of brownish taupe over here in this, this is like a garage. And there were a few spots there on the floor that were corroded, and I sanded them. Let's just see if we can make those blend in and go away like we did the living room. Will they do it, or do they need something else? Let's see. I'm pretty happy with that. I may wait and let it dry and then see if it needs anything else, but that is really pretty close. Now, there are some little pitted spots up here along the edge of the deck, and maybe even back here on the deck itself. That deck's a little faded, but the colors are there and the shapes are there. It's supposed to look like, blocks or paving. But let's try a little bit of that off-white on those spots there and see if we can just get those little pits to kind of blend in. Usually that is all that you need on those little kind of pitted dark spots. Just kind of lighten them up. Now, if I needed to, I could go back and put a little bit of the color. This color is like almost a lavender. I could put a little bit of that in there if I need to. But we're going to start it with the off-white and then see how it looks. There you go. It's done. I filled in that faded area just a little bit. Those little bitty nicks and pits over here on the deck. It looks good. A few little tiny scratches on the roof. It looks beautiful. I'll probably take this downstairs and do a tour of it. But for right now, I'm going to call it done. I love it. And Grandma Jeannie with paint on her hands, Grandma says, Grandma loves you.